Jake Giffin Podcast.
All right, here we go. All right, John Brink, welcome to the Jake Giffin Podcast. Man, you are an interesting guy. I work out a lot. You can see my background. The only reason I don't enjoy working out, the only reason I work out is because I don't want to be an 80-year-old man that can't get around. And so when I saw you, I thought, you're the kind of 80-year-old guy I want to be. There it is. Living young, dying old. And my apologies for the interruption. John Brink is amazing. 85 years old, doing the Arnold Classic, instrumental in the Canadian lumber market. He sells a lot of stuff to us here in the States. If this episode strikes you as being interesting, if he's inspired you at all, leave a comment and please subscribe. The algorithm overlords appreciate it, and I appreciate it more than you could know. Hit the button now. Thanks so much. See you next time.
I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America.
Is that right?
I am.
When was the last competition?
Qualifying for the Arnolds for the second time in 2026. So I qualified in 1918 for the Nationals in the Arnolds, and then COVID came, and now again I'm training for 2026, and this is how I look today. This is one of my books that I wrote, and it's all about quality of life, Jake.
Yeah, that is the goal of the box that I stand on and preach all the time, and that is I don't want to get, when I get older, because you can't avoid getting older, that is just, it's how life works. You can keep from being less mobile or less active. What's that competition look like now in your age? How old are you now?
85.
You're 85. Okay, so at 85 years old.
I'm 85 November the 1st, in a month from now.
Very nice. Well, happy birthday.
Yeah.
What's that competition like? Is there a lot? It's a seniors group, I assume?
Yeah, so most of the people that, if I'm competing in the north of British Columbia or the provincials or the nationals, I'm in the group 55 and older. So they could be my kids usually, but still I come in second in bodybuilding, third in physique. It's very normal for me. And there are not many people that are older than me and not many that are even close.
I mean, in some cases, you're competing against guys that are 30 years older than you. You're younger than you.
Yeah, so yeah, they could be my kids.
Now, I noticed once I got into my 40s, testosterone starts dropping. I had to supplement more often. It was harder to lose body fat. It was a little harder to maintain muscle mass. What is it like in your 60s, 70s, and now 80s? That's got to be a steep uphill battle. No?
I've been doing this for 16 years. I've been going to the gym for 16 years. I started competing. After I went to the gym, there is always something that happens that triggers us, right? So up to 2008, what happened to me is that I got a case of diverticulitis. Those people that don't know what they are globally, they say if it is the right side, it's probably appendix. Left side could well be diverticulitis. If you go to the tissues, eat more greens, your colon, mine ruptured. And if it ruptures and all the toxins go through your body, they start attacking other organs. So if you wait, very, very painful for 48 hours, then it becomes extremely dangerous. So I got on the verge of being already past that, went to the hospital. They took out 20 centimeters off my colon, and the came in the following morning. He said, "You came this close." And I said, okay, so it's time now for me to become very serious about diet. My wife is a vegetarian. Didn't listen to her as closely as I could have been. I was not abusive, but I ate, but not as close as.
Yeah.
And then the other one is going to the gym. And I was one of those guys at the end of the year, we kind of do, then I'm going to buy a membership to the gym. And then 2 weeks later, I can't find 100 reasons why I'm too busy to go to the gym. And so I knew in my life, I got lots of business and do a lot of things, a lot of meetings. I have to have an appointment to go there. I find a trainer, that's what I did. And then the other part is that I started to become very, very serious about diet and became a vegetarian 80-20. Now I'm probably 90-10. And so and that's 16 years ago. And then, after I was in the gym for about 6 years, somebody came up to us and he said, "Hey, John, have you ever thought about competing?" I said, "Me? Yeah." He said, "Well, why not?" So I did, and I started training and then in 2017, 18, started training. 2018, started competing in Northern BC. I came in second bodybuilding, third in physique. The same happened provincially, and that qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. And then COVID came. And then my training fell off a little bit, but I still kept working on it. Now again, I'm training for the Arnolds, and I go 4 times a week. I go to the gym, train very, very hard and very, very serious, and I like it and I enjoy it. Hence my picture. This is what I'm today.
How do you keep the muscle mass up being a vegetarian?
I still eat protein. So, usually what I do is I'm very conscientious. What I do, I sleep 7 to 9 hours a night. In the morning, I have 3 eggs and an avocado, or 4 eggs and a small avocado. That's what I do every day. And then mid-morning, I have a protein drink that I buy, the kind you buy at Costco, a Boost or something like that. And then I go to the gym, usually at 11 o'clock till 12 o'clock, work very hard, have a double protein drink there. Then mid-afternoon, another protein drink. And then in the evening, I do something more substantial in terms of protein and food. So that's what I do, and I like it.
What are you weighing in at now?
I'm probably 202 in that area.
Yeah.
I like to be about 195-ish. I'm a big boy. I'm in good shape.
Are you trying to shoot for 200 grams, a little over 200 grams of protein a day? Is that the rule?
Yeah, somewhere in that area, 180 to 200, in that general area.
So not straight. So the 10% protein that you're getting, the 10% that you're not vegetarian, is probably all the protein that you're taking in through shakes and
correct
various sources throughout the day. So that's great, man. If you can get in 200 grams of protein and still maintain 90% your vegetarianism, congratulations, man. That is a hard thing to do.
Yeah, but I like it. It's a way of you get used to it, Jake, as you well know. For me, it's like going 4 times to the gym, and then I walk. I do probably 5,000 steps a day, and all the work that I'm already doing. I have 10 different companies, and I'm very active. We have a horse farm in an arena. My wife, myself, ride English dressage. Okay. Over the weekends, we walk a lot. So I do probably 30,000 steps a week in that area, 30, 35, somewhere in that area.
Yeah. Well, I think I think people are going to be surprised at nearly 85 years old that you have 10 companies, you have the Brink group, which is, I mean, it seems like you've done a great job in vertically integrating this lumber industry in British Columbia. So I think it's fantastic in the sense that now correct me if I'm wrong, the goal here is to try to keep jobs, keep industry flowing, keep people working in the mills and other places. I mean, that is the best possible, to keep lumber and mills as closely knit as you possibly can so that the income stays in your area. Is that pretty fair to say?
Yeah, so they do, British Columbia is the amount of natural resources, including lumber. So I'm the advocate. On October the 1st, next week, Wednesday, I believe, I will have been 50 years since I started this company, Brink Forest Products Ltd., October the 1st, 1975. With 3 employees and myself as a new concept and adding more value, social and economic value to the resource. But since that time, I have 4 silos. The one silo is lumber manufacturing. Be the largest secondary manufacturer in the province of British Columbia, if not in Canada. And the second one is warehousing, distribution, and logistics. Be by far the largest warehousing company in northern British Columbia. The third one is we do real estate, residential, commercial, and industrial, probably the largest one there as well. And the fourth one is media. And so with media, I'm working on my 6th book. I'm a presenter all over the place. I'm very active in podcasting. We're approaching, I think I'm very close to 10,000 subscribers away from 1 million subscribers.
Very nice.
And then I've done probably close to 500 podcasts where I'm hosting, and then I've been about 200 and 250 places where I'm a guest. So I love podcasting. It's the new media.
Mm-hmm.
It's only on its infancy. It is exploding.
It is.
I love it.
Yeah, definitely. I do too. And I think it's one of those places where people get to meet interesting people like yourself. They get to learn about all these different industries. Now, I'm fascinated with the lumber industry because I'm in the home services business is termites. So I'm on the very end of what you're doing. You're at the very beginning of building. You're pre-building, and then I'm post-construction, keeping termites from eating the lumber that you so graciously sell to North America.
I like it.
I'm fascinated with the lumber. The one part in the lumber, we're going to talk about your media and your books in a little bit because it's super great what you're doing there. But in your 4-prong attack, the one thing you're missing right now is the mills. I think you made some bid on a few mills last year or a couple years ago.
Yeah, last year as well as the year before.
How's that going?
And again, you appear to be fairly familiar with BC. But we grow in BC. Which area, where are you from, or where are you located?
I'm in, think of Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Okay. So Southern California and United States.
Yep.
So the lumber industry in North America is that obviously the United States is a big consumer of lumber compared to Canada. Obviously, United States, about 350 million people or even more. Canada is about 1/10 of that. So British Columbia has a lot of trees, a lot of forest, especially in northern British Columbia, but it's what they call spruce pine, balsam fir. And so those are the softwood lumber that is used for dimension, that is sold into the U.S. market and other places around the world, used mainly for building and construction. Very high quality, some of the best fiber in the world is grown in British Columbia. In the south part of British Columbia is Douglas fir and cedar, and some of the other hemlock is another one. So those are the species in southern part of British Columbia. The north is more spruce pine, balsam fir.
Yeah.
And so that's what we manufacture, and then we sell it all over, in our case, the United States. And our products, value-added products, go into anywhere in the United States, but in particular into Texas. And obviously, housing starts are way down in the United States from where they normally are. New home dwellings are normally at about, single home dwellings are at about 1.5 million annually. They are right now at probably 800,000 because of mortgage rates are still very high. They were as high as close to 7%. I believe they are now closer to 6%. U.S. mortgage rates, 30-year rates, and they hopefully will go down to between 4.5% and 5% towards the end of the year. But in the meantime, the market has been depressed in the United States. And I need to know the United States because that's where I'm doing a lot of my business.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what 90% of your business is here, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, how does tariffs and things like that affect Canadian lumber and your businesses currently?
Not good. You know, the whole idea about tariffs is the one, Jake. But lumber is more affected in our case by duties and duties on lumber that is imported into the United States. And it has been since the early 1980s, and it was already before that, is the U.S. industry, lumber manufacturing industry, trying to depress volumes of lumber moving into the market in the United States. And they had powerful, especially in the Senate and the House, and having put in place these duties. And the duties are based on the allegation, correctly so in some cases, is that the lumber industry in Canada and BC, in my case, but in Canada in a general sense, on the timber that they are getting, is the allegations by the U.S. industry is that they are subsidized. they're getting timber that is below cost or is dumped into the market in the United States. So the companies that have the privilege of access to crown timber, and it's not like in the United States where most of the timber is private, but in this case where a lot of the timber is prime, they applied duties, and then they added another element of anti-dumping. Some of the larger companies were selling below cost, and so they added duties. So today, what we see in duties, not tariffs, duties alone on lumber, the all other rate that most lumber manufacturers pay is 35.19% duties on all the lumber they sell. And some of them are even higher than that. Most of it is based on 2 or 3 different companies dumping into the market, and subsequently the duty was at least up to 35%, 20% is because of anti-dumping. The interesting part about it is we are value-added manufacturers. We have no timber. We don't get any stumpage. We are competing with other places in the world for our raw material, including the U.S. secondary manufacturers, and we being penalized by duties, which is grossly unfair and unrealistic, really, is very, very unfortunate, because I can see the U.S. manufacturers making a case that some companies are being subsidized, but it doesn't apply to people like us.
So sorry to interrupt, but what is the difference between a duty and a tariff?
The duty is applied to lumber manufacturing in the case that I'm replying to. Only lumber manufacturing that is exported to the United States, where the exporter of record that by shipment, truck or carload, rail car, comes to the border, there will be assigned a duty. If they are one of the designated companies that is being charged with anti-dumping, they have their rate. All others, that includes us, pay a duty of 35.19%. The unfortunate part of it is always with tariffs and duties is that ultimately the buyer will pay the price of the duty or the tariffs.
Sure.
And that's the way it is and always has been. So it will also be the case here. So what will happen, Jake, if I may, is that housing starts are very low in the United States. The lumber industry in the United States is depressed as well, mainly in the U.S. Southeast, Southern Yellow Pine. A lot of mills are shutting down because of the price of lumber is way down. Once that goes and the mortgage rates come back to the 4.5% to 5%, then the U.S. desperately has to build more houses. Once they do, they go back to double where they are now, 800,000 starts annually on single family. They will likely go back to the 1.6 or 1.5 million. Then they have to import from Canada 30 to 40% of all the lumber they use, because they do not have enough lumber and enough timber other than the U.S. Southeast, and they alone cannot provide the volume of lumber required. And then what happens? By supply and demand sets price, and that means if there is still duty, it will be simply added to the selling price.
Right. And adding that duty, you said as an anti-dumping situation, is that just to make sure that American companies aren't priced out of the market with cheap lumber flooding into our economy? Or is that why they're doing it? Or is there some other?
It is, in my opinion, it is the reason that they're doing it. And I've been watching this and been involved in it since the early 80s. The reason that they're doing it is simply by creating a shortage in the marketplace that allows them then their prices to go up and finally creating more of a profit on the bottom line. It's not self-serving. It's not very good for industry or business, but that's how it all started. Anti-dumping, I believe, I say sometimes they did the right thing for the wrong reason, but at the end of the day, we have to work together as what makes North America strong is the US, Canada, and Mexico working together.
Yeah.
And so we have in Canada lots of resources. We are like friends on either side of the border, in particular Canada and the United States. We have the same, views of the world, being together in world wars, World War II. I was born in Holland. We were liberated by the forces that landed in Normandy in 1944. The US, Canada, and the UK, they liberated Holland and Canada in particular. And when I was 5 years old in 1945, on April the 12th, 1945, we were liberated by the Canadian Army. It made such an impression on me that I knew from that point forward at 5 years old, if I grew up, I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And I did in 1965.
Yeah, that's cool. And you didn't know, because your dad was taken captive or at some point, right, during the war. You didn't know if he was alive until
Correct. My dad, the last time that they saw him, he was drafted into the Dutch army. And the last time that they saw him is just before the bombing of Rotterdam. And for 5 years, they would not know if he lived or died. And my mom she had already two brothers and a sister. And then myself, she was pregnant with me. I was born November the 1st, 1940. And so my mom and the three kids had to go through the war years. And I still remember 1944, there was no food, and they had cut off all the food supply. A lot of kids died, and a lot of older people that were vulnerable died as well. And every morning we would go with my sister, my brother, and myself with gunny sacks in the railroad yards, pick up anything edible and burnable. And the reason we did as kids, because the Germans wouldn't shoot us, they boot us one, and we'd be back the following morning. And saw far too much that we should not have seen. People being shot, especially when the liberating forces came in, and we were in the northeastern part of Holland. It was in 10 minutes of the German border. So things were getting pretty rough there towards the end of the war. So saw far too much that we should not have seen. PTSD still very much part of my life, even still today.
I mean, it wasn't even a thing in 1945, 1946, right? When were you able to identify PTSD as something that you had?
It was always challenging. Why am I different? And why was this still so much part of my life? A couple of things happened to me is that when I was I was not a success story academically. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. And then they said to my parents, I loved my parents, and they were good parents. And people said to them, so they said, what are we going to do with this kid? And they said, send him to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. So let's make him, so what should we do? So my dad had a friend at a furniture factory. He says, let's make him a furniture maker so he can work with his hands, because he doesn't have the brains, obviously, and not smart enough, according to the teachers. It was a bit of a joke in the school. Everybody got the top marks, and they say, John is usually nothing. And so,
well, let that be an encouragement to everybody who has, let's say, ADHD or PTSD or whatever else you might learn, like
dyslexia.
Yeah, dyslexia. Like you went from
It's all me and all the package.
Yeah, you went from scrounging food and materials in 1944, 1945 to building 10 companies that have over 400 employees now. Whoever suggested that you go into the mentally, we're glad you didn't.
No, so and wrote 6 books, top 1% podcasters globally. And the point is simply this one, is that the foundation for me was attitude, passion, work ethic. And so I was going to prove to myself, not anybody else, that I was just as smart as all the other ones that went on to college and to the university. And so I went to Canada. I had 1 suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I was going to build a lumber mill. That was my dream.
With 25 bucks, you had $25 in your pocket, and you're like, I think I'm gonna get into one of the most,
$25.47.
I have $25.47. I'm going to get into one of the most expensive industries you can possibly imagine starting.
Yeah. 50 years ago. And started with nothing there and was going to make it happen.
Why the lumber industry? I mean, I know you've been instrumental. You've really I mean, you've done some phenomenal things in lumber. I think people are going to find out during this podcast, but why the lumber industry of all places?
So when I left school, my dad had a friend that had a furniture factory and saying, okay, maybe John can work there. I was 12 years old, 12 and a half, and I started working in the furniture factory. I loved it. And then my grandfather, I never knew him. He died when he was 42. He was a master carpenter, and he built a lot of the furniture that is in churches and all these other things. And it was amazing. And my dad managed a small lumber company, not his. And so I was fascinated by being a lumber manufacturer. And my dream was to go not only to Canada when we were liberated by the Canadian soldiers, April the 12th, 1945, but also that not only go to Canada, but then go to British Columbia because that's where all the trees are. And then I built my own sawmill. That was my dream.
Yeah.
And so when I landed in Montreal, took the train across Canada from Montreal to Vancouver, and 4 days, 5 nights. My God, that is a long way. Oh, then we stopped in Vancouver, went to the immigration department. I couldn't speak English. So fortunately, there was a German fellow. I could speak some German. I told him I wanted to build a lumber mill. He said, go to Prince George. That's where you have to go. That's where I am now, 60 years later. And so I came off the bus here with my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, couldn't speak language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. Counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. But attitude, I'm always positive. Passion, whatever I do, I give it 125%. Work ethic, I work harder than anybody. Even now, I get up 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed and I always think I'm late. So that's what I do.
Now, look, hard work ethic or not, 1975, what ridiculous banking system exists in 1975 that is willing to give a 25 or 26-year-old man barely in the country a loan for a lumber mill?
Good question, Jake. So what I did, I put together a business plan. So I started working first for a mill here as cleanup man, then became a lumber piler, and fairly quickly I became a supervisor and then a superintendent, and that didn't go fast enough for me. So I got involved in the mill where I managed the mill for them for 5 years. I would get 1/3 ownership. And so
Good deal.
I did that.
Where
was the mill? It was in Watson Lake, Yukon. Can you imagine a guy coming from Holland? And if you ask me, what is the climate in Holland? The rain is colder in the wintertime. That's the climate. It always rains.
Yeah.
And so then how about the Yukon? The Yukon is right next to Alaska. Watson Lake is on the border of British Columbia and Alaska. British Columbia and the Yukon are on that border. And so I've seen it 62 below zero.
Ooh.
And I was there for 5 years. Ended up owning most of Watson Lake, gave it all away. It's in my book. And this book, Against All Odds, I write about it, gave it all away, and then went back to Prince George. Then I put together a business plan. I still have it today. Went to every single bank in town. They all turned me down because I didn't have any equity. And so I ended up with one bank that I went to, the Royal Bank, actually. And I went there several times, and I didn't want to hound them too much, but saying, what should I adjust and adjust? And so I did. After I'd been there for the 12th time, the guy, I still remember, 4 booths over, the general manager of the store of that bank was there. So the fellow that was looking at my proposal, I wanted $25,000 to start the mill. And so he said, okay, let me talk to John again. John Reams was his name. And so I can still remember, I was sitting there waiting, all anxiety about it. And all I heard in the distance is, give him the money, give him the money. And they did. 25,000. But I had leased already a used mill here and all the little pieces in place. So that's where I started. And I worked for the first 10 years, 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, as long as I could stay awake. That's what I did.
Yeah. Perfect.
I touched everything.
That's the dream.
Everything.
That's the dream right there, man. I'm not like people listening to this podcast are going to say, especially the younger guys, a lot of younger people listen to this. So it's like, what does it take to make, look, we're in a digital age right now. It's podcasts, it's digital products. You can make money a million different ways. And manufacturing is one of those things you can make money at. It's very expensive to start. Mills, you can do it with grit, with know-how, with a little bit of patience, learning from other people. You went and you worked for other places, and then you got stuck in the Yukon for 6 years?
5 years.
Goodness, man. 60 degrees below zero in the wintertime for 5 years. That is this the kind of stuff like you have from the time you're a kid, you're going through all these trials, these tribulations during World War II. You end up in Canada, you go to the Yukon, you're suffering, man. You're just going through it. Like, is this the kind of life that do you have to live that life to be as successful as you are?
No.
I mean,
see, what I always say, I have people asking me that, saying that, how do I be, you're so successful, and saying, how do I become successful? They ask me, is saying that success will find you.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just a question, do you act or not? Or people say, oh, you're lucky. I said, no, the harder you work, the luckier you get. That's how it works.
Yeah, well, yeah. That stands true because look, they can't say that you got lucky or you did that. You took a spot in the Yukon for 5 years. You took a spot that a lot of people wouldn't have taken because they're not interested in being cold, or they didn't want to suffer that much, or they couldn't suffer that much. They didn't want to work that hard, whatever it was. They didn't have the vision for what they wanted to get, and so they didn't know what to sacrifice in order to get it. And so they had. I mean, I don't hear nothing. I don't hear any luck in your story at all.
No,
I hear
just hard work.
I hear hard work and focus because you knew you wanted to open a lumber mill.
Correct.
Now look, man, I've been under houses, over houses. I've been hundreds, maybe thousands of homes, not maybe thousands, in the last 20 years in the termite industry. And I have seen, this is why you're so fascinating to me. One of the reasons, besides that you're 85 and you're going to be in the Arnold Classic or whatever, right? It's like that's really cool just in itself. But I've seen finger jointed lumber my whole career. And you can tell by looking at it that it's not a whole piece, that it was spliced together by finger joints. And so when I read your bio and I was doing research for this podcast and realized that you were basically the godfather of finger jointed lumber in North America.
Correct.
I'm like, I didn't know if I should like sacrifice a calf to you. I know I'm burning incense in your name. I'm doing what are you like? You're a legend.
Well, I don't know about that, but I just try to be, my grandmother always say, we all are just trying to get by. Nobody is overly important. Nobody can put a hand in their pocket when they are naked. So we're all pretty much the same. And so to me, what is important is culture is important. I like to give back to communities. I like to respect people first and foremost. And I try to give back to our community here where I live, provincially, federally, and in Prince George. I'm involved with the University of Northern British Columbia. I was involved in getting it built here at the College of New Caledonia, where we have trades. I was involved in one of their main buildings, and they have my name on it, John A. Brink Trades and Technology Center. And
Very nice.
I like to do things like that. The other thing that I do, Remembrance Day, the week of November the 11th, I always try to speak at least at 3 or 4 different schools every week. of the 11 to share with the students about my experience of war and why the 2 minutes of silence and why it is so important to remember that and what it means and how fortunate we are here, and always remember those that gave everything for our freedom.
Yeah.
And remember that that part is important. And I was there. I remember it well, still affected by PTSD. It's part of giving back. And to me, that is important.
Your Remembrance Day is like our Memorial Day, basically.
Correct.
Yeah. So for those who don't understand Canada, because who really understands Canada except the people that live in Canada, right? It's a beautiful area as far as I know. I've never been there, but the nicest people in the world come from Canada. I've never met a mean Canadian in my life.
On the other hand, Jake, the way I look at it, we are all friends, and I believe I know quite a bit about the United States. It is my business to know about the United States,
Yeah.
not only for business reasons, but simply because we are close. And I like to watch them. We look at their televisions, so we watch their politics and all of those things. Then I believe that we can do so much together as they have in the past. As I said, I still remember the post-war 1947 in Europe when the Marshall Plan, really put together by the Americans together with the Canadians and the UK, of rebuilding Europe, has been one of the greatest pictures of the free world getting together and pushing out the dictators like Adolf Hitler that caused so much grief and hardship, and millions and millions and millions of people died because of it. And so freedom is and democratic rule is so critically important to the free world. And I like to see Canada, the US, and Mexico working closely together. And for me, it's important to understand it. As you well know, a lot of the podcasting that I do is a lot of people that listen to me are Americans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we're basically, when Trump took office and there was these rumors and jokes, mostly in jest, that Canada would be the 51st state. I don't think anybody here would complain. Canada's beautiful. And hey, welcome aboard. We're happy to be part of the same family. We're at least part of the same family anyway. We're in the same continent. So
that's the way I look at it. I have many, many friends in the United States. I have a lot of respect for the country and for the people that live there, but we can do more together, hopefully, in the future. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, we have a good working relationship. It's just a matter of governments getting out of their own way for the most part.
Yeah.
And we get it that the American government's going to be in it for primarily themselves, right? Whoever makes it to the top of the food chain and can direct policy to fill their own pockets, to maintain their own power and influence, that's what they're going to do first. And then hopefully, if they manage to get any of that, that will somehow sift down into what should be their main priority, which is protecting and providing for their own people.
Yeah. No
if
question.
both of our governments would put the people first,
Yeah.
and the benefits to the people instead of their own selfish desires and their own selfish needs, then
if I look at it, Jake, is that the United States nearly 250 years, I think 238 or so now, but say 250 years, is their constitution was an example of a democratic rule that was put together with the 13 states that formed the United States Foundation.
Yep.
And the Constitution is the living document, and it starts with the people.
Yep.
And I believe that's the foundation, and all the other things that happen in between, ultimately, that's the foundation, the Constitution.
Yeah, and if you look at, I've reflected on the Constitution a lot over the last the older you get, the more you reflect on stuff like this, right? When you're younger, whatever, anarchy and A's and whatever, it's crazy. But when you get older, you start reflecting on how important that simple document is, and primarily because you look at other countries that don't have constitutions,
exactly,
or have fluid constitutions. They're just making it up as they go. And you realize just how important those types of documents are for maintaining a culture and maintaining some order of civilization. And
Exactly.
if our Constitution could change on a dime, it wouldn't be worth anything.
No, then it would not be called anymore a constitution. It's just a rag.
Yeah, just some rag that we'll decide we'll play by these rules for now until we decide
Something like
these rules don't.
Venezuela, or Russia, or China, or North Korea,
Yeah.
or on and on and on and on.
Well, and as
So,
technology advances, we see that there's certain people on both sides of the aisle that are attempting to massage some of these constitutional rights into oblivion so that they don't have any weight. And I don't know what they're doing the same thing in Canada. You guys have a constitution. You don't have the same right to bear arms kind of stuff as we do, or freedom
we
of
have
speech. I
more
don't
of a
think.
parliamentary system that they have in England. And so our leadership doesn't mean much. They can defeat them fairly quickly. Like our federal government is a minority government. They can vote them out of office fairly quickly unless they get support of one of the other parties, but they are not a majority one. And provincially, British Columbia is about the same, not necessarily a majority government, so they get voted out fairly quickly. So, and then once they leave, and then we'll get somebody else.
Yeah, I mean that's how you'd like it. You'd like it to be super easy.
Yeah.
You swore an oath to do something, you didn't do it, you're out.
Goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye. I mean, and that's
Have
I think
a nice day.
yeah, you have a nice day. We might be able to make that a little easier in America by saying that if you took an oath to defend the Constitution against foreign and domestic enemies, that as soon as you prescribe or as soon as you put forth a law that violates that oath, you should be removed from office. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Like if you swore an oath and then you decided that maybe the oath was kind of an optional, more of a suggestion than it was an oath, then you should, you should get fired right away. I mean, look, we got people that are in our employ that if they don't follow the rules of the company or they do something egregious, they find work elsewhere.
Exactly.
That's just leader. So what is when you're dealing with, from a lumber standpoint, what is this relationship like? Do you have to, you're dealing with a lot of regulations from a Canadian standpoint, a lot of regulations from an American or from a U.S. standpoint. What is that tension like? Are your costs just so far through the roof? It's hard to, I mean, your margins have got to be shrinking by the day.
Well, there are no margins because once you can be no different than any other business, as soon as you say, over top of all the taxes that you're paying already, there is another 35.19% of duties that you pay. Then it's just a question, how much are you prepared to lose or can you? So it destroys the industry. That's what it basically does. That's what it has done here, is that all the politics around it, what should it look like? Politicians here, provincially, every 4 years we have elections. We elect somebody from the left or the right, and then they have the different ideas. We appoint or elect a minister of forest and a premier of the province, and that have different ideas about policies, and on and on and on and on.
Yeah, so you're having to adjust your business every 4 years depending on who makes it into office.
Yeah, so capital likes predictability. So what we need is a longer strategic plan. What is the strategic plan for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years? That's what I say. If you don't do that, you will not attract entrepreneurship. You will not attract capital. Capital will find other places, wherever it may be globally.
More predictable places.
Jake, we are more and more global. And and we have challenges in Canada as well in those areas.
Yeah, I mean, and you're seeing that a lot of lumber mills are shutting down. A lot of guys are taking the hit. If there's no money to be made, it's not worth the risk. You and I know, the weeks, the months, the seasons that you go through where you're wondering how you're going to make payroll, how you're going to expand your business. You're not making that much money yourself sometimes, and you're just going, if the government's making more money than you are, then that's a problem.
Yeah. And then add to that the international duties, like it's unfortunate on the duties side, because I believe there is no question about that the U.S. needs Canada's lumber to supplement what they manufacture. They cannot possibly manufacture enough fiber
Yeah.
to build all the houses that they have to build and all those things. And the obvious candidate is Canada. And so hopefully common sense will prevail rather sooner than later, and things get back to a sense of normality. But we're certainly not there right now. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
tariffs, the same, is that we never quite know what will happen tomorrow morning. And ultimately, the buyers will pay for duties and tariffs. If not today, then it will be tomorrow.
Yeah. Until they don't want to. And then and then you don't sell lumber and I don't sell termite work, where things just get so out of hand that it goes beyond their ability to pay for it.
Yeah, and then say the capital will say, we will no longer do that. And that's what has happened in the forest industry here. They have left. Some of them moved to Sweden, some of them moved to the US Southeast, but then things are not much better there either in terms of lumber prices. And again, if you got mortgage rates, 30-year rates at close to 7%, then people will not build. And then the other part, predictability against stability, people will not invest. They're sitting back and saying, I don't know, I'm not going to spend any money. And
Yeah.
if the public doesn't spend any money, that means the inflation rate will go up, employment will go up, on and on and on. And the economic indicators go to the point where they are close to now, where it becomes the big R. And once it is the big R, recession, everybody will suffer.
Yeah. Everybody will suffer. So, well, I know with the last few minutes we have left, I don't want to leave it on a note where we're talking recession, because we can go down that rabbit hole and then we're not going to come up for a couple of days. You and I think probably could go off on for a while on the discrepancies between governments and the costs that they're extracting from the people who pay their bills.
Enough already about that topic.
Yeah. You in your book, you mentioned that attention deficit hyperactive disorder is more of, what do you call it, a superpower than it is a deficiency. What did you mean?
What I meant is this one. I didn't know what it was until I was 57. And when I was 57, I always was wondering, who am I? Why am I different than the people that I grew up with? That went to college and university, and I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. I went to Canada, was fairly quickly successful in building a mill and more companies all around. And even then I felt I'm a failure. So I didn't have the confidence. And then until, as I said earlier, I walked into a bookstore and here in Prince George, after I was here already for 32 years, I was then 57 years old. I picked up a book. So the title of the book was Driven to Distraction, written by Dr. Halliwell. And so I don't know why I picked it up. And as I started looking at it, Dr. Halliwell wrote about ADHD, never even heard of it.
Yeah.
And about dyslexia. And I said, oh my God, that's me. and so then from there on in, I went back home, read about it, and it was implying the stigma was that it is a mental disorder of some sort. Looked at Google and started finding out more and more about it. And after 5 years, when I was 62, I went to my doctor, lived with our 2 daughters, was a personal friend. And he said to me, why are you here, John? I said, I think I got the ADHD. And so we checked it out, and I do. So then at the same time, I had the ability to do all the things that I was doing. And I started writing books. Started with this one, Against All Odds. Then wrote another one, ADHD Unlocked, very popular. Then I did another one, is this one here, about living young, dying old. And then the last one I wrote is this one here, about communication skills. That's what it is all about. What made those billionaires successful. It's all about communication. So the more I saw, and then more companies I have, some people say, and then all the podcasting that I do, and they said to me, how do you do all the stuff that you do? I said, ADHD. That's how I do it. So the more I read about it, Jake, and the more I understood about it, I'd say it makes it unique, that ADHD, and I believe it is a superpower. It gives me the ability to handle a whole lot of stuff all at the same time, focus on one, then do whatever I have to do, go to the other. So it became, for me, something that is no question in my mind. I was born ADHD. So it affected me in grade 3 and in grade 7, and from there on in. But strategically, I'm very good. I was always good with numbers. I was always a good writer, not a good reader. And so as I started understanding all of that, and I came to peace with what I was, ADHD, and being a superpower, then I felt more and more people around the world are affected by that, both male and female, and there's still a stigma around it. I felt then I had to write about it. I did that. ADHD Unlocked, and I started in certain settings. I don't do all of that on podcasting, but if the topic comes up, I usually mention it here and there, but my podcasts are about different topics. But neurodiversity is one of them that I believe are misunderstood and still in the form of being explored. And say it is very, very critically important that young people, the sooner they have a diagnosis and the sooner they understand that it is not a deficiency, it just makes them different. That's critically important. And I believe if it were not, ADHD is not the one that prevented me from being successful. It was the reason that I became successful. Now I have an obligation to speak about it in appropriate settings, and that's what I do.
Now, so based on that, I mean, would you say that then that you have, and so it was never diagnosed early on enough for it to dissuade you from pursuing other ventures, right? So it's like, is the disability then in the stigma rather than the embracing of it? As like, it's a reframe, right? Where if I think I have something that's detrimental to me, and I believe that is the case, and I medicate for that discrepancy, then I'm limiting myself on some level by not appreciating the true power that it brings.
I believe, let me put it this way, I do podcasting, and my podcast 203, I'm podcasting Dr. Halliwell, who has written 18 books, 5 on distraction. He has in dyslexia. He wrote the book on distraction that I bought, Driven to Distraction. And I had him on my podcast, and I suggested to Dr. Halliwell, he's the expert, I lived it, that I believed then that initially I thought maybe 7 or 8% of the population, male and female, but the more I read about it, the more I understood about it, I think it's closer to 20%. I suggested it to Dr. Halliwell. He said, no, John, probably more than 25%. I agree with him. And then the other part, in all the things that I've done, I've been on board of directors and interacting with very, very important people that are very, very successful. And the critical part is successful individuals and companies and entrepreneurs, business people on the boards of directors, and that I suggested to Dr. Halliwell that I believe 50% of them, or I said, no, John, probably 75%. I agree with him. I do. And so from my perspective, sometimes I say, a little bit tongue in cheek, some people say to me when I give presentation, I tell them I failed grade 7 3 times. And they say, does it still bother you? I said, yeah, it does. Every day it still bothers me. I should have left earlier.
Yeah.
That's so, and that's tongue in cheek. But the point that I'm making is simply that because of who I am, I learned more in all the things that I did than that a school could have provided to me. And I believe our schooling today is still not what it should be. And all of that is still changing all the way from kindergarten up to universities. We are not being effective in recognizing a number of things, that we are not effective in learning and gaining knowledge and experience.
That's right.
I'm writing another book that comes out next June, July, that will include issues around that as well. The whole concept around ADHD now is accepted. It's not looked at as a liability. In fact, most of the most successful individuals that I have here in my book, ADHD or dyslexia or both. And these are the billionaires.
So don't medicate for it, embrace it, use it as the superpower that it is.
I don't medicate myself. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I would not give medical advice, but I do not want it. I like what I'm doing. It makes me effective. All the things that I do. I have an excellent memory. I'm very good with numbers. I am very good strategically. And all the things that I need to do work well for me as to who I am.
Nice. Yeah, well, you're doing great, man. I mean, John Brink, besides all the legendary work you've done in lumber and providing North America with its resources, the books that you've written, the Arnold Classic. It's Arnold Classic, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
Right, yeah, the Arnold Classic that you've participated in, and then you will participate in, and I imagine you'll win or come very close to winning at 85 years old. I mean, man, you are an example to whether we have ADHD, dyslexia, or we're just chronically torturing ourselves with various businesses. You are a great example to us.
So do me a favor, Jake. You are in LA. So if you see Arnold Schwarzenegger, can you please tell him that you podcasted John Brink? He told you to tell him, John said, I'll be back.
I will. If I run into Arnold Schwarzenegger at the gym, I will tell him, John Brink said he'll be back, and he's not walking out until he has the title. You know, 85 years old. John Brink, thanks so much for joining us here today, man. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing what you do in the future. You're going to break records, I'm sure, with age. You're going to be a 200-year-old man participating in the Arnold Classic, whipping these 55-year-olds like they're little kids, man. You're an absolute stud and an example to all of us who are getting older. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this show, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. For more information about Jake, log on to jakegiffin.com and find him on all social media platforms. Until next time, peace and power be yours.